Nostra AETATE. I mean, Nostra AETATE is the worst. It's the most notorious of all the documents because of what it says about, basically all the religions have some access to God. You don't need Christ. Basically, you can. I mean, it'll have this little qualifier that, well, it's still Jesus, but Islam, atheism, Hinduism. I mean, does Satanism count too? I mean, is Jesus present in Satanism? Because if a Satanist says, I believe in one God, oh, bro, so do I. So I guess we have the same view, right? Let's start with our ecumenism there, since we all believe in one God. That's the absurdity of this, right? Is that you can't have half Catholicism in the traditional conception of Catholicism. You have to accept the whole body of doctrines. But the thing that disproves the Roman position, I'm saying, is that it is an evolving position. And that's what this stream is about, is that, in fact, the documents of Vatican II admit submitting these things to a new examination, the aggiornamento, right? The rapprochement that John 23rd talked about with the modern world, right? That's what the document, the church in the modern world is about reconciling these older medieval notions of the church to the new understanding of human global society and socialism, which is now autonomous. And so basically they're saying that the church must accept this secularism as well. But that's a capitulation of your whole system.
Exactly, and we're bringing up Vatican II because you have a lot of people will be complaining about Fratelli Tutti, Pachamama, and the more recent events, saying, oh, but these are not magisterial, they're not authoritative, we can just not follow them. But it's already all in there in Vatican II. And if anything, these documents are just shining a new light on how you should interpret Vatican II. So that's the thing. It's already been here. And since as a Catholic you need to follow the Pope, and the Pope says that Vatican II is an ecumenical council, that's a dead end. So if you refuse this, you need to refuse a council, you need to refuse the guidance of your Pope, which isn't he the one who's supposed to tell you which is a real and a false council? And if you say, okay, I want to uphold the previous magisterium and the church of the Middle Ages, Renaissance, or even first millennium, then you have to reject the Pope. So that's a dead end in terms of Roman Catholicism, because as a Catholic you still need the Pope, despite what the Seven-Vacantists will tell you. And that's why it's the only position that maintains previously held faith in a system that works. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the epistemology of the papacy, because it's failing in front of our eyes. But the only way to preserve this is coming to Orthodoxy, and we are waiting for you. We kept everything we could. We kept the first millennium church. Even Benedict XVI, was a more traditional pope before he was elected pope, explained it. Yes, we kept this faith that we have to keep. So yeah, we're here. Do you want to go a bit further on Fratelli Tutti? Touch on
before we did, one last thing I want to say about Vatican II is that, again, I'm just trying to remind people that it's not just Nostra AETATE and it's not just new encyclicals. When you go into the documents that have been literally dogmatic, and there is no question about Vatican II being dogmatic, you can sit here and say all day long, I don't accept it. I just did a stream with 4 papal approvals of Vatican II that admit that it's dogmatic. You can go see all the links in that stream where I show that it is. Even if you did want to go that route, if you thought that would allay your conscience, just think how absurd it is to say that for 60 plus years the entire Roman See has been wrong and taught error or heresy. Now, what does Vatican I say about not the question of ex cathedra, but the question of indefectibility? Does it really seem plausible that the Roman See can teach error and heresy and apostasy for 60 plus years? That's ludicrous. So we don't even have to look at ex cathedra. And by the way, Francis saying something ex cathedra or not has nothing to do with something being heretical or not, right? Saying something ex cathedra is not the prior qualification for something being heresy. If that was, nobody could be a heretic except the Pope, because nobody can pronounce something ex cathedra. Right, so as Snek has pointed out, maybe it's a better route to just attack and look at the notion of indefectibility of the Roman See. right? Because that's one of the corollaries to the supposed infallibility doctrine, is that the Roman See will never fall into error. It will never fall into teaching falsehoods. It will always have the charism of Peter, and that doesn't mean, that has nothing to do with private opinions or public dogmas. It has to do with the Roman See not falling into error. Now, they're going to say, well, but he has fallen into error in XYZ cases, in his personal opinions, and when he's a private theologian. They have all these qualifications they're going to list, right? I know that. But the problem is that it's moving the problem back a step, because you don't have a clear indicator when you, as an individual, can go through and read and pick out when that is a private opinion, public teaching, right? Binding, universal magisterium, universal ordinary magisterium, ex cathedra. Like, it's all up to your interpretation based on general criteria that in your application are fallible on your own system. And so what this amounts to is really, this is, I think, the ultimate defeater argument, is that for them, the Pope is indefectible until he defects, which is an unfalsifiable and stupid position.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had an example of this. So maybe I could bring up the latest event. We've had the Pope giving a statement endorsing same flavor Skittle union.
Union, yeah.
Evil union. And a lot of people will say, oh, there will be a variety of ways to defend it, but one of them is actually refuting the papacy. That I found really funny. People will say, yes, this is heretical, but we've had heretical popes before. Look at Honorius, for example. Well, really? Wasn't the whole point of the Vatican I justification looking at these historical examples and saying, well, actually, they were not heretics. That's why Rome is indefectible. That's why he's the best shepherd. That's why you need to follow this dude and not any other patriarch. Mm-hmm. If you look at Denzinger doesn't say that Honorius is heretic.
Yeah, I was about to cite the section of Denzinger where they actually include Honorius as dogma.
Yes, so they put this letter that is heretical and has been burned by the Sixth Council. And then they do an addendum saying, well, actually, it's not heretical. So you cannot just build your church on this stepping stone to say, oh, it's indefectible. And then when it defects, just saying, well, look at it, it happened in the past. That's a code. That's contradictory to your magisterium. And that's still defection, regardless of if it's ex cathedra or not. That's still the Pope teaching heresy.
Is it 682, Seraphim? You're in the chat here. I'm looking through my Denzinger. But it's the affirmation of Honorius about, the letter is about one will. And then Denzinger cites it as if it's Orthodox. But that's the irony here, is that, is he a heretic or not, right? And they'll say, yeah, but well, it's not binding. Now, wait a minute. Where does it say in Vatican I that indefectibility only applies to binding doctrines? It doesn't say anything about that. It doesn't say that the Pope will be indefectible when he's binding doctrines. No, it says the Roman See is indefectible in terms of all of its teaching. So now maybe prior to Vatican I, you could have the opinion like Bellarmine and others that the Roman See could fall into error and heresy. But after Vatican I, it's settled. The Roman See cannot fall into error and heresy. That question gets settled at Vatican I. So what are you going to do? Okay. So let's see. I was too far. I need to go back some. It's Denzinger. Here it is. 251. Thank you, Seraphim. So here's 251. Citing Honorius, Denzinger 251. And this is the letter where Honorius affirms monothelitism. And he's condemned in the council, and by the way, in the Seventh Council, it reaffirms the condemnation of Honorius. So it's not doubtable. It's not dubious.
Yeah, like this letter was burnt. Like you can look at the act.
And they're citing it in Denzinger as if it's teaching the opposite. It's dishonest, right? So, guys, come on. What are you up to here? But one thing I wanted to say too about your point about the Skittles flavors and the change of opinion on this. Now, they'll try to get around this by saying, well, this is not about sacraments. It doesn't matter. It's a question of what the position that you had, what your position said on moral law. Now, remember, in the Roman Catholic view, moral law is a reflection of, natural moral law is a reflection of the eternal law, which is a reflection of God himself, right? So it can't change. You can't change moral law. You can't change natural law. And the principle for the civil sphere is no different than the basic principle. It's not like because it's the civil sphere, it's under natural law, but the church is not under natural law. That's ridiculous. The church is in the Roman Catholic view, the church is under natural law and supernatural law, right? You could say the civil, if you want to be inconsistent and have this John Courtney Murray view, they still say that the civil sphere is under natural law. So how can there be a change in what's prudent or advisable or moral, right, for the civil sphere? It can't change any more than anything else relating to natural law. But notice, if the principle of natural justice can evolve, which apparently according to Francis it has, because the death penalty was traditionally classed under natural justice, if that can evolve, then by extension so can this.